Welcome to the AI Accelerator Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Zembruski. I'm thrilled to have with me today Pini Reznik joining us. Pini is the CEO and co-founder of CINQ, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and they're a pioneering company that's really helping organizations navigate the transition to AI native development. Pini, thank you so much for making time today and being available for the podcast.
Thank you for the invitation, and I'm really happy to be here.
That's great. Pini, I know you're passionate. We share the same passion about helping organizations embrace AI in really meaningful, practical ways. And I like to say humans plus AI together become superhumans in the workplace. And I know there's a lot that you and your company are doing to contribute to that. So let's dive in and hop right in. First of all, can you just share a little bit for our audience about, where you are in the world, where your company's based, and just sort of like a very, very quick little more about CINQ and what you're up to.
We are a European company, so it's Danish. Actually, I'm based in next to Amsterdam, and our team is fully remote, so we are all over Europe mostly. And so I'm coming from really the hard technology, so cloud native space, cloud large platforms, working with biggest enterprises in the world. And in the past, I have built another consultancy that was actually focusing on cloud implementation and cloud transformation. About 5, 6 years ago, I wrote a book called Cloud Native Transformation, which was about actually transforming the organization and the technology towards successful adoption of cloud native. And now, after we sold that company and started a new one, now we are looking to do the same with AI. So it's sort of the next wave of innovation. And we totally see the benefits, but also the challenges with the adoption. Right? So we are coming from technology perspective, from deeply technical processes, but also with a lot of organizational change that is absolutely required, and people don't often see the connection.
Yeah, very, very good. I want to dig into that a little bit because you use the term cloud native, AI native, I know in some of your online publications as well. And can you explain a little bit more about, I guess, AI native and how that evolved from cloud native and just for our listeners to become really superhuman in the workplace? For them listening right now, what's the mindset shift that they need to move to go from the digital cloud space to the AI space?
So the term cloud native actually exists for about a decade, and the cloud didn't start from cloud native. The cloud is just, it's your hardware sitting somewhere else. Basically, you are using somebody else's hardware. And by doing this for so many years, what we figured out, not just us, but the entire industry, is that you can't actually go to the cloud and get the benefits of the cloud unless you change your technical architecture, your organization, your processes, your entire mindset, your culture, right? And culture is difficult to define, but technology is actually quite easy to define. It's microservices, containers, continuous delivery, and team topologies, things like that. So there's actually quite clear definition. And effectively, if you want to get the benefits of cloud, then you need to change and become cloud native. So you need to natively build applications that will run in the cloud in the way they intended to run. And AI native is sort of the same concept. It's still being defined. It's not clear where it will take us, and it's not clear what exactly defining principles like microservices, containers, and dynamic scheduling, what are the similar principles in AI native. But the idea behind this is to say, right now we are just building additional component that is using AI. And that's not AI native. That's just using the piece of technology. We're expecting in the coming years to start building applications that are intentionally built for the cloud, for AI first, right? So they basically start from leveraging the best out of AI, not particularly generative AI, any sort of AI. But we don't yet fully understand what it means, right? We don't fully understand what kind of team structure, what kind of processes, but we realize that it's going to change.
That makes very good sense. And you mentioned about I've been in change management for a while, like mindset, culture, all these things are really, really important. And say that, let's say an organization wants to be more AI native, right? And they want to start moving in this direction. For a person working in that organization, for an employee or a contractor who's working in that organization, what is a way? I know some of your materials, as I research your background and so forth, you talk about like people spend 90% of their time on more mundane tasks and leave only 10% for the meaningful work, right? And there's a lot of this opportunity right now in the workplace to start to do more of the human-centric activities as the human and let AI do more of the AI-centric ones. What are some, I guess, what's an example of the way that you've seen that work well in the workplace? Maybe it's with your software, or maybe it's just you've seen it in general in the workplace.
There are lots of examples. One example is actually I just finished writing a book, right? And it's a quite heavy one, more than 400 pages. So I use the AI quite a lot. But I think this is a good example how to use AI together, like human power and AI power.
Mm,
So you very quickly, when you start working on such a project, you very quickly realize that there are limitations to LLMs, to AI.
yep.
Basically, it's not original. It doesn't create original models or any original ideas. It sort of turns them around. It's your responsibility to ask the right questions and recognize the right answers. But it is absolutely amazing in editing and turning around the text. For example, reducing complexity or fixing errors or structuring bits and pieces. Or so the book includes a lot of patterns, like design patterns. Because they're patterns, they're really, really perfectly fitting into LLM. So it's very easy to use the LLM to actually deal with those patterns. And we see similar things outside. This is just one example that I personally have done in the last year, but we see a lot of work. Like, for example, we're working on this CFO agent, which is
Hmm.
basically one of our founders is a CFO with a long history of doing CFO work. What he finds is actually most people are not well educated in in finance, including the executives. And also executives, it's extremely difficult to get information from the teams, right? Because you need 10 different people, they all have different perspectives, the data is spread all over. And then you find yourself like five people working on a massive Excel sheet just to answer a question, are we billing the right amount to our customers? This is easily solvable with AI and it's immediate benefit, right? Or things like we work with a logistic company, about 200, 300 trucks and in Denmark. They spend a lot of effort on actually receiving the orders and scheduling them and managing the fleet and managing the drivers. There's a lot of patterns there. So there is a lot of optimization. But those are very initial problems. They're all still around optimization and cost reduction.
Mm,
I think what's interesting is to think how our life is going to really change when we go beyond cost reduction into value creation.
hmm.
And this is still early. I think this is where a lot of projects, we saw this report from MIT and others that most of the POCs in AI are failing because people don't really know what to do about it.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. I've heard multiple things about that report, and it just went viral across the whole world, obviously. And I think there's a lot of ways to interpret that. The headline itself makes it look like AI is not working for companies, but there's literally, like you just mentioned, there's a lot of what I would call like low-hanging fruit. There's a lot of immediate opportunities that individuals and companies can take advantage of in the workplace to really start to optimize their workflow. And you're talking about some of the things that are not as obvious now because they're all sort of in creation, and maybe that's where the MIT report focused more on. I'm not sure, but the longer term value creation requires what you mentioned a minute ago, the culture change and these things happening in order to unlock and move in that direction. The question I was asking a lot when I was first really deep diving into AI a few years ago, when ChatGPT hit the scene, is okay, this is cool. There's a lot of stuff going on with it. There's a lot to learn. It's always changing, always evolving. But how are the leaders doing it? How are the most successful people using AI? So you mentioned that you used it to help you with your book and with the patterns and things like that to help you with editing. You did the creation of the material, the innovation, the ideas, the substance of the book, right? That's yours. But then AI became a great editing partner for you. It sounded like. What are some examples like your typical day or a typical day in the life of some of the folks in your company? What are some of the ways that they work with AI? Are they becoming more AI native, or are they still taking baby steps?
I think it's still progress, and it varies across different people, right? But we also run a podcast, and we talk to people. There are some companies that are definitely ahead, and you hear these stories like a single person unicorn and things like that. The main difference that AI brings is, I think, beyond the optimization. The real difference is first is the interface. It's really changing the way we interact with computers. It means that you don't actually need to write code, right? You can actually interact with a computer, talk to a computer in human language, which means it opens up the possibilities to write code, create content, create visuals, maybe not yet visuals, but soon enough. All this creative work can be done by people who are not educated too much on that particular topic. So there's a breakthrough. You don't have to have development teams to actually be able to leverage AI. On the other side, what we also see is that actually a person who doesn't understand how computers work or how to run a successful uh, computer system, IT system, they can create POCs and experiment with things, but they cannot take them to production
Mm,
because they don't really have full understanding of security, operations, how the IT works, right? We are IT company, we're a software development company. So the first thing that is most important is code assistance, right? You absolutely cannot write any new code unless you use code assistant. It just makes no sense, right?
mm,
You cannot rely entirely on code assistance. You still need to understand what you are doing, but um, development teams that are not using code assistance, they're just going to fall behind. Like there is no question about that.
mhm.
A great example from my son, he's now studying in college, he's 20, and because he's working also for CINQ on marketing, he's using very extensively AI. And in college, he's like, he can do the same work that the other students are doing in a week, he can do it in half an hour. I cannot distinguish it from human work because he knows how to add the human side to it. He knows how to work with AI correctly. So when you look and compare him to his peers in studies, it's almost unfair, right? So that's the direction that if you're not using AI, then it just takes so much longer.
It takes a lot longer. Yeah, that's very interesting. My son just graduated college a little over a year ago, so he's just a little older than your son. And I think about education and learning a lot. And I really, to say what you just said in a different way, is AI really gives you the ability to be a super learner and
Yeah,
really grow professionally and personally very, very quickly, like to accelerate what you want to do. And I think that's absolutely amazing. I Something else that you shared, I'll say in different words, is that AI is really leveling the playing field. Like it
yeah.
doesn't matter your educational background, it doesn't matter your technical or non-technical ability, other than putting things in production. But in general, you can get so much value from AI. You don't need to be a software programmer and technical expert to have some software written or to create an app, right? My girlfriend has a son in college as well. We have a son in college, and he's every day. It's just like your son. He's in the middle of it. So how does he work with AI to help himself learn more? Not to give his homework and his assignments and the learning away to AI, right? But to stay engaged. So what could you share about that? Because clearly your son is your son, so he knows that his dad's involved with AI, and I'm sure you've taught him a lot of the ropes of how to do that. But he's also evolved that while he's in college. Can you share sort of like some practical
Yeah.
techniques or strategies maybe that you use or your son uses to work with AI?
I mean, first, you just need to start. Like it's still fairly amazing to me that people are not doing it. because it's so easy. But on the other side, when I started maybe 2 years ago, I asked the first question, happens to be Gemini because I got access to beta version early days, and it wasn't that simple. It's a bit scary, and it's very important to know how to ask the questions, right?
Mm.
Because if you ask the wrong question, then you get like in Hijacker's Guide to the Galaxy, like 42. If you ask the wrong question, you get wrong answer. But there is no alternative to just doing it. I think everything you do, everything that requires thinking, research, anything, you have to use the AI to even as an opportunity to learn how it works.
Mm.
I think education is particularly important topic. Education has to change to include AI as part of curriculum, and it's not right now. And many universities or schools, they actually forbade students to use AI, which sounds absurd to me. It's like we have a tractor, but no, you dig with shovel. Like
Right.
it just makes no sense to me, right? But it also represents the world that there is always resistance to change, and those organizations are big and difficult to change. And it also represents the enterprises. They are not that much different. Like, and it represents the fear of change within those people who are doing their work for 30 years and suddenly they need to change.
Mm.
But there is only one way, which is just do something, anything. Just try to do anything so you learn and you adapt yourself, and then the fear goes away.
That makes a lot of sense. You're saying start to do something, start small, and take your steps and start to get into the role. I'd imagine that there's a significant percentage of your day and probably your son's day as well, being in college, where you're conversing with AI and you're leveraging AI and things like that. Like, how often are you working with AI? Like when you wake up in the morning, let's talk about like just I guess just morning routine. You start work or you start your day. Are you reviewing your plan for the day or some of the critical activities that you plan for the day? Do you bounce that off AI in the morning to help you sort of navigate your day, or do you use it more for just the bigger things throughout the day?
I use mostly Gemini and ChatGPT, so I use mostly two models, but then often others for cross-reference and extension or sort of checking each other or expanding on ideas. But there is almost nothing that I do doesn't include AI. So they're always open. Um, I mean, as CEO, most of my work is not writing code, but talking to people.
Hmm.
So English is not my native language, which is also, something that it's very easy to fix these days. Um, so this is sort of no-brainer to just take every piece of email I write and then just put it in AI. And today it's very easy because every email application includes some sort of proofread or something. Um, but generally, anything around content creation, research about potential customers, anything marketing related, anything sales related, there is nothing you can do without AI that will be better, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, asking a question, can you find 20 best companies of this type in this geography? This is almost no-brainer with a good model.
Hmm. Do you find to that point, do you find that you like the deep research aspects of it to like go off and do that? Do you sort of pair that up? How do you process that? Like, are you doing a bunch of deep research a couple times a week or
Yes.
a lot?
Actually, because we do a lot of marketing and now we are promoting a new book, and there's quite a lot of these things. And generally, also when working on the book and the content, deep research is very valuable. So there are times when I run out of credits on deep research. Deep research is great. Of course, it takes time and it requires certain type of content. But for example, when I was working on the book, um, I sort of asked the models figure out what's AI native and what's the future of AI native. And it's actually very, very educational and interesting. I think just asking this question, it goes away for 10, 15 minutes, it comes back with a report, and it's not perfect, but it's fairly amazing,
Mm.
right? Because it collects effectively all the knowledge around the world and puts it in like 5-page report. And that's a great, great starting point for a good piece of content and for learning. So yeah, I use deep research all the time, but it requires certain type of exercise to go through. So it's not a good fit for everything, obviously.
Hmm.
Um, we also do now, we're doing based on the book, we do online assessment. So there are all kind of questions, and then we feed it into LLM, and that generates the report with the book as the context. Um, so that goes into deep research, and it generates pretty good assessment report, like the professional consultant almost.
That's fascinating. I've participated in authoring a book years ago, but I'm not as experienced as you are. And having a 400-page book that obviously has a lot of technical content in it, and it's a very thorough book, obviously, from just what I can tell. Have you played with because you love Gemini? I use all the different AIs. Have you played with Notebook LM at all as a way to take your book and make it into all these different little learning modules and things like that that you can use to start to emanate?
I tried many different tools. There was a point when I started, I tried different tools. And when you start something like that, the most naive thing to say is like go to LLM and say, write me a book on AI native. That doesn't work at all, right? Then the next thing is to go to one of those tools and say, create a structure. But actually, I didn't feel like it was very helpful. I don't know why. I'm not saying those tools are not useful. I
I'm,
think
I'm
they're, yeah,
I'm actually to interrupt you. I'm actually talking about the now that the book is done.
right,
I think it'd be a really interesting exercise if you haven't done it yet, is
right.
to take your PDF, put it in Notebook LM
Yeah,
as the only source, and then you can talk with your book via Notebook LM,
right.
and you can also generate audio, flashcards, mind maps, all these things. So that would be interesting.
That's actually a good point. I haven't done that. I think what I use those different tools to actually writing. That's actually interesting. I will try that. So every new idea is obviously very welcome. Actually, good point, because we're building this assessment, effectively putting it as a backend, as a context window, and then giving people access to our books through our own basically agent in a way.
Right. That's what gave me the idea. Maybe if Notebook LM takes the information and puts it into a way that might be useful for that agent to use, then you could hand that off to the agent and say, hey, use these as ways for people to learn material in the book or use the patterns and things.
It's a good idea, and I think one thing that a couple of things that I learned throughout the book, writing the book, is one is that the context window became so massive that you can just drop entire book,
Okay. In Gemini,
especially in Gemini. Yeah, so you just drop it, and the context window is 1 million tokens, which is much longer than less than 100,000 in the book.
right,
And the other thing is that there was this period, and I was really struggling with the language, like with this sort of AI language versus human. And whatever you say to AI, it doesn't understand what it means to write it in human language. But there was this point of breakthrough where I was talking to somebody about code assistance, and they were talking about all the code basically connected to Slack, and then marketing people could basically generate marketing materials based on real code and real issues during the development. That was like interesting story. And then I thought, but I already wrote a book, and that was human written book, right? That is my language. Why wouldn't I just give it to LLM, right? That was absolutely a breakthrough. I just took the old book, put it inside, and say just to write in the same language. And
because
it's like magic. Yeah, it's just did the work.
it could match your style, your way of thinking, your way of prose, because it looks for patterns, obviously. So it become more like you in the way that it's helping you edit the book. and write the book.
Exactly. Exactly. And this kind of breakthroughs, how to ask the questions, how to create the right context, what it can do and what it cannot. And later stages of writing, it was quite difficult to edit small parts. So because AI always rewrites everything, or it does, it's quite difficult to focus on specific pieces. But then what you can do is to just write it manually, but in worst possible language. It doesn't really matter. And
Yes.
just say it, fix it.
Almost like a stream of consciousness. I do that all the time. I just dictate large amounts of information to AI and say, can you make that into a prompt, or can you help me summarize that for an email or whatever, and just go, right?
And I think what we are looking for with executives that we work with, like people who need CFO agent or HR agent or something like that, is create similar experience with non book writing exercises, but with finances or with planning or with strategy or with HR or whatever else. Because at the end, it's not that different. Like a typical CEO doesn't have all the information they need to run the business. They need to ask other people. And that's probably the biggest bottleneck in a typical business, especially a small one.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really smart way to go from knowledge sharing as well as from a marketing perspective. And if you have, when you have any of those little like, hey, this is without AI, this is with AI, or this is with our agent, this is the before and after, this is like what it looks like if you were to leverage this. Just these little practical examples. I'd love to share them with our audience. I know our audience
Yep.
loves those things because it's always about I'm a little bit about the learning with our audience, but a lot about the practice and the learning from the doing. So the more we can share that, I'd love to do that. And I know we're about up on time, Pini. I really appreciate all of your time, attention, your insights. This has been fantastic. I've been to Amsterdam once in my life. Love it over there. The people are just amazing. It's one of the languages I least understand, Dutch. Like I played with languages. I mainly speak English, but anyway, I have a lot of respect for the multilingual capabilities of everybody in Europe, but especially up in your neck of the woods. And really appreciate everything you shared. A lot of great insights into what you're doing with your company, but also the way you're interacting with your clients and people. And I really appreciate your time today and all your insights. Thank you so much, Pini.
Thank you for invitation again, and it was great to have this conversation.